Once again, I screw up again. I screw up again. I forgot the microphone. After I just greeted everyone, I forgot to turn up the volume. So, anyway, welcome to Tibbs, Skybear, Great Gold, AMG, um, Enlighten Up, and Hector. I saw Hector broadcast a moment ago, and Judiski. So, hello, folks. Welcome, entire Meyer. So Angelic Heart. So hopefully we have sound. Hello, Hector. Okay, so pardon me here. Hello, Ed McLean. So pardon me here. This it's a new configuration. I changed everything around. I have a new computer here and a new setup and new area here, and so it's a little bit more complicated. Thank you for the super hard, JM. So it's a little bit more complicated than before. Um, so I got to get used to the pattern. How are you doing, JM? Successfully tweeted too. Thank you. Okay, so it's kind of messy, and when I'm like flooded with complaints about every little thing from the audio's down and there's a buzzing sound and there's this and that. It can to a live broadcaster it is very hard to react and you have to comment. So just understand that it's not something that is easy to react to at the moment because you can kind of panic. And my way of handling that is if it's bad, then it's bad, and I can't really do anything about it. And I will not worry about it today. Okay, so the problem with the mic yesterday was I figured out it was selecting the wrong mic. I was using the mic on the camera rather than this mic. So actually, I was talking here, but this wasn't the mic being used. So 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 there you go. So that's little little difficult to handle this. Especially for the new environment. I try to keep things as as standardized as possible, so that when I just come in here, I only have a few minutes. I set up, I broadcast, and usually everything is pretty much all prepped, and that's not the case yesterday because I had to set it up. And again, I tried to like practice a little bit before a broadcast to make sure all the buttons and everything are right, and listen to the headphones and make sure the sound is okay and so on. So no more glitches tonight, right? Everything is cool. No obvious glitches. So uh, I hope. Hello, Twist Mint. Who did I miss here? The other thing that I realized is that yesterday, as I was watching the replay, and I don't usually like to watch the replay, but I watched the replay last night, and one of the things that I realized was that there were a lot of comments that I missed, and I need glasses because the comments on YouTube are extremely tiny, very very tiny, and if it goes too fast, then it kind of gets hard to see. So just if I miss a comment on YouTube, just tell me to look back. I can always scroll back up. Okay. Jaffo Charlie, hello. Thank you for the super heart, Jaffo Charlie. Okay. So if I miss a comment and it's important to you, just hello Vic. Hello Mama Goo. So Jim Joe? Is that Jim Joe? Goodness, I'm gonna have to Jimmy Joe. Jimmy JC? Gosh, that is really tiny. Really. Synovium. My gosh, it's super. I need glasses for this. Hello, Night Eyes. Hello, Spirit. You can put the chat on slow mode, and yes, we have made the comments too small type font. Yeah, so the type font on YouTube is very small compared to the one on Periscope. On Periscope, I can see it and I can scroll back and they're very big. So it's a lot easier to read the comments on Periscope. So I'm trying not to miss and kind of like in panic mode because everything is kind of new and I was kind of like deep into the discussions and I don't mean to screw it up. No, uh, the OBS that comes with uh, Linux does not allow me to insert the comment. So it's a different OBS. That OBS. Hello, Crystal. Welcome back. Uh, Mecca's Queen from New Jersey. Do we have to say your name again, Mecca's Queen? Do we have to say your name again? Which I keep forgetting. uh, so anyway, hopefully, we'll do a better job here because I don't want to miss comments. But we complained to Periscope about the font size for a long time. No, the font size on Periscope is fine. I don't have a problem with Periscope. I'm on a tablet on Periscope. It's large enough. The YouTube font is very, very small. So I'm looking at a computer screen is small. I'm looking at a phone and it's even smaller. So yeah, I just need glasses. Okay, so may have to use glasses next time. So okay, so hello Starlight. So Twist Mint. So who Lourdes from Mace Landing in New Jersey. So Mecha Queen does not need to be doxxed. She self-doxes herself. So Lourdes from Mace Landing in New Jersey. So yeah, she will dox herself, so you don't have to bother doxing her. So hello Demon 100. The color needs to be darker though. It seems like it's changed a bit. What color needs to be darker? Darker than that? It's pretty dark. Raw Periscope font is fine now cause we complained. Uh, okay. So anyway, hello, demon huntered. So I was on YouTube, so I don't get yelled at by you, but you can't read my comments, so now I'm here. No, I go back to YouTube. I'd rather read your small comments on YouTube than big comments on Periscope. So YouTube, is my growing platform. So I'm focused on the new people that are coming in on YouTube. So most of the new people are coming in through YouTube. So it's kind of a focus of mine. And the YouTube videos have longevity. If I do a replay on Periscope, hardly anyone watches a replay on Periscope, but on YouTube, the replays are substantial. So it's just a different platform, and Periscope is more focused on live, and if you don't do anything live, then don't expect to watch any replay. I can read comments easily on both platforms because they're right beside each other here. So I have it in a very convenient spot. So okay. Thank you, Starlight. Although saying that doesn't change anything, unfortunately. Yes, we're. I'm only 100 and some away from 5,000. So last week that would have been a day, but now it's slowing down. So the way it works on YouTube is determined by the algorithm. The algorithm decides everything. You pretty much don't have a choice. So if the algorithm decides to share your videos because they feel like it, or maybe you're competing in the market and they found that your videos perform better than competition, they start putting your videos up to whoever they think might watch it, and then it's really up to them. And then if it succeeds, then your numbers go up. And you can't really, it's kind of random. It's kind of random, and it's you know not not it's not predictable. So topics you think might be specialized or too technical becomes very popular. Topics that are very general that you think will work for all doesn't work. So there's really there's no known methodology here. So it is just kind of trial and error. So and whatever works, you keep doing. So in this case, what I found, and this is kind of bad for some of the people on Periscope, because I found that the new people who are coming into the broadcast are more tech savvy. So because of that, I've been raising the complexity and the technical level of discussion to a higher level, because the new audience seems to prefer that. And hello, Drac. So I'm trying to balance it out and seeing what gets more people in here. And it looks like the more technical I get, it actually doesn't hurt. So got to go with what works. Yeah. So some people will not like it. Some people will not like the layout or whatever. Unfortunately, I can't. I'm not going to be broadcasting much next to the piano anymore because uh, just different logistics here. So I got to free up certain parts of the house, and because I'm like, I take it over, and no one can have visitors, and no one can have their friends over, and so on. And so, in order to free everyone up, then I move to a different spot, and it's a completely different setup. So it is what it is. Just bought Brax for Dummies. Uh, so okay. Anyway, um, that's where it is now. Uh, Enlighten up. And I really thought about it. People on YouTube don't see Periscope comments, but they can see YouTube comments, and people on Periscope can see Periscope comments. So, anyway, so we'll uh, you know try to read comments. If I'm gonna talk about it, I'm gonna read the comment out, and then everyone will know. So anyway. So this is the Star. Yeah, I'm broadcasting off the Star laptop, the Linux machine, and pretty much I'm I've moved 90% of what I do to Linux. So 90% has already moved in here. Now, what the issue is that there even the same software has some slight differences. For example, I'm using OBS. Now, I would have thought that OBS would be the same on Windows and a Mac and Linux, and it turns out that there's a slight difference, and the slight difference is that I can't insert a browser screen for comments. So, so the slight difference is enough to change my broadcast. Okay, so the slight difference is enough to change the broadcast. So I can't really do much of anything. Uh, Anyway, I still need help setting up my Linux machine and my Chromebook. Yeah, Drag, let's talk about that, Drag. That's a very good question. Drag says he needs help setting up a Linux machine on a Chromebook. And he's asked me this for a while, and said maybe I'll make a video about it. So I have a Chromebook, so I said, okay, let me see. Everyone says you can easily set up Linux on a Chromebook. And as I found out, it's zucked up. That's one of the reasons I bought a separate Linux laptop, because as it turns out, Chromebooks are zucking bad for running Linux. Chrome doesn't actually seed the computer to Linux. It doesn't actually do it. What it does is says, okay, we'll give you a little container, and you run your Linux inside the container while we're still running Chrome. So in order to start the machine, you actually have to always start on Chrome, and then you have to go to terminal and issue a command to start the Linux session. I don't like that. You do not have full control. You will find as you work with Linux that those kinds of things cause problems with installations of apps and so on. And so it's just not something I wanted to do. It was just too much of a headache. So the best use of Linux on Chrome is just to practice and play with some bash commands. But if you're going to build an app, for example, no, I wouldn't do it. It would be a waste of time. So, what is the most simplistic way of explaining to the average Joe that surveillance is happening? Chrome is Gorilla. I actually had to power wash my laptop and switch from the dev channel back to regular version. You had to power wash a laptop. I don't think laptops like to be wet. So I don't know what that means to power wash your laptop. So the topic tonight is, strangely enough, about the operating system of Google and Apple called iOS and Android. And if you didn't know it, I've been getting hammered over the last few weeks from people who are really, really fond of Android. I haven't really gotten any anger from people on iOS. They kind of know what to expect. But I had a lot of problems with people who are on Android, and Android has some really big fanboys, especially people who like to root their Android and say, well, I'm smart. I can root an Android, therefore, I can do anything. And it's like, really, you can do that. Okay. So we're going to go into detail about why Android specifically and iOS is zucked up, and why we don't really want to be on those if we can help it. And it is a problem. So anyway, let me say again to new users here, to those who are new to my channel, that this is a swear-free zone. We don't cuss on my broadcast. We do not cuss here. Okay? So people who come in will hear me say things that they think is cussing and really say, wow, this guy, needs to wash his mouth out with soap because he's, has a dirty mouth on a broadcast. And no, for those of you who are new and not from Periscope, and I have to always say this on YouTube now because we got some new followers and new subscribers who don't know me from Periscope. People on Periscope know me from for 4 years now, and I'm well known on that platform. And one of the things that I have introduced over the last 4 years, and it's actually a very popular term on Periscope, is the word zuck. Okay, so I used the word zuck, which is a shortcut for Mr. Zuck, Mr. Zuckerberg. And in case you didn't know what channel you're on, if you think you're on the wrong channel, let me remind you that you are on the privacy channel. And the biggest stealer of your privacy, of your private data, the number one attacker of your data, and he does not care as much as society is starting to change, is starting to be sensitive about how much data is being stolen about each and every one of us. There is one guy that persists in increasing. In fact, I would say Google's actually going the opposite way and is kind of pulling back a little bit. And Zuck is doing the opposite. So because of that, I am well known for saying, Zuck you, Zuck. Okay? What the Zuck, Zuck? So if you go to Urban Dictionary and check out what the Zuck, That word came from me, and it says so on there. So what the Zuck came from me, and I own the domain whatthezuck.net. So what the Zuck, guys. So that's what we're dealing with here. So it's just zucking bad when this guy named Zuck decides he's going to steal more of your data while Google is pulling back. Let me just tell you the contrast, okay? I don't, I hate saying good things about Google because, Google is not your friend either. But Google at least is recognizing that their model, their search model, their ad model is going to be zucked. It's being zucked in Europe now because of the privacy laws in Europe. But it's going to be zucked big time if they don't change. So, for example, I don't know if you know this, but Google is actually changing and is actually going to stop browser fingerprinting. Now, I don't know how many years it would take them to change this because they said in order to implement this, they have to change the way advertising is done, which is used to identify each and every one of you specifically by device. It's fingerprinting every device. And then they store that. And so they can trace whatever you do and the moment you wake up in the day and where you go, what you do. Did you brush your teeth? Did you not? You forget to take a shower. All of that they know, and they know every little corner. Did you stop for your Starbucks in the morning? Did you not? All of that are known, and they've decided that they're going to pull back and say they're going to change the way to do advertising to more of your current behavior, like what did you do right now? What did you type right now? Rather than a historical thing about tracking your entire life. So they're changing algorithms and all that. They announced this last summer, and I'm going to guess it's going to take, or last spring. I'm going to guess it's going to take, some time before they can execute it because all of the advertising is based on this. Facebook, on the other hand, hello, I'm in it. Facebook, on the other hand, is doing the opposite. So Facebook said, well, they're blocking locations. So a lot of people now are blocking locations because they hear people like me saying to you that if you upload a photo to Facebook, Facebook will take the location from the EXIF data that's on the photo and then extract that and then track you in various ways. And so people respond by turning off location on their phone, and then their advertising stops working, and they want to get more information. So Facebook said, well, that's not good enough. We need to circumvent the location tracking. So we're going to circumvent it by saying, can we get somebody's location without seeking permission for location? Now, they can do that to some extent using your IP address. So your IP address already reveals location to some extent. But some of you are on a VPN, so they say, well, we want to get away from that. Even if you're on a VPN, we want to find out what your location is. And they have figured out how to do that using something called the MAC address of the routers. So they've now found a technique. All they have to do is use your phone device, running the app, to go search the network and look for the router. And then from the router, they can extract the location because of a technique that I will talk about in a moment again, that is part of Wi-Fi triangulation. So Facebook piggybacked on Wi-Fi triangulation because they want to spy on your location constantly, so they're doing that. By the way, this will circumvent Facebook. This is one of the reasons you want to do this. This circumvents Facebook. So if somebody from, like a friend, visits you on Thanksgiving and comes into your house and said, can I borrow your Wi-Fi? And say, sure. So this is my password. So you give the password to your Wi-Fi, and they sit there on the sofa and they start using Facebook. You are zucked. All of the MAC addresses of all devices in your zone are now uploaded with locations to Facebook. And so it knows just by the MAC address then who you are. So, and MAC address is not something that's public. It's actually a private piece of data, and Facebook made it public They're one of the first companies to actually use it in this way. Just talk about the evil of Zuck. So Zuck is zucked up. So my response to people who come in here, yes, Zuck you, mother Zucker, like, and that's saying hello, Zuckerberg's mom. That's what that is. Okay, that is not a swear. That is not a swear word. That's saying hello, Mrs. Zuckerberg, wife or mother, whichever one. Okay, either Mrs. Zuckerberg will count. So Mother Zucker. Okay, so anyway, today I'm not really gonna. That was just a brief intro about why I say Zuck, uh, but we are really going to talk about Android and iOS. So, um, so I got a few more phones. Uh, Believe it or not, I had more phones yesterday, but a lot of people bought them. So the phones kind of went fast. So and then some other phones arrived. Like I got this today, so and I load Ubuntu Touch on it. So there's Ubuntu Touch on it, and frankly, I prefer it to Lineage OS. However, there are bugs in here, and so it's not perfect. But for cost effect, I mean the for what I'm trying to do, then it's certainly an improvement. Let me just backtrack a little bit to tell you about my original video about flip phones way back when, some months ago. I made a video about, how do we escape this kind of threat that we find with Android and iOS phones, and the threat is very, very serious. And how do we escape from that? And I said, hey, let's use a flip phone. Unfortunately, flip phones are kind of useless because they're just used for calling. They're very bad for texting, and that's about it. It's texting and calling. Your mic is working today. Yes, Josmo. Okay, so I recommended you buy this. This is early in the year. I was recommending this because I didn't have a solution then. So this is a BlackBerry Bold 9900. I believe I bought this for, can't remember now. Possibly under $50, and it looks new. It's kind of wrapped in plastic when I got it. I mean, it's flawless. It looks pretty much like new. Okay, there's not a scratch on it, nothing. It's flawless. Okay, so so this works as a phone. So you put a SIM card on here. It is 3G, which is still supported. So you can use T-Mobile, for example, or T-Mobile suppliers like Ting, Mint, and so on. So you can use this with a carrier in 3G, and they're they're going to work. You can use phone. You can use texting. It's easy to text because it has a keyboard, and for that, it's functional for that purpose. And because this is running BlackBerry OS, this is not running Android or I think this is one of the last models that did not have any kind of Android influence on it. Because it's running BlackBerry OS, their own OS, and this does not have any kind of spyware compared to Android and iOS. Now, there's a newer model of this that has a touchscreen. Anything with a touchscreen apparently is now based on some version of Android. So I'm suspicious about the Passport and all of those models that are about a year newer than this. So at the moment, I'm going to go back to this. This is the last model I would think about for using as a text and phone only device, a BlackBerry Bold 9900. So this is still very functional. I don't have a problem with it for this, but because as we use the internet in certain ways, for example, I have my own app, Brax.me, and I need to go to the app and talk to people or do tech support or something. I also need to go to YouTube because the YouTube channel is very important. and I need to respond to comments, and I can't do that on this. So for that purpose, this became limiting, and I couldn't really bring this every day. So I couldn't really bring this every day because I can't do. I hardly even make phone calls or text. So mostly I talk to people on Brax Meet. So this became a limitation for me. So I said, let's find a different option. Uh, so the option that I'm using now, and it's still buggy, but it's the only option I have at the moment, is to use a Linux phone, and this one is running Ubuntu Touch. This is a Nexus 5 running Ubuntu Touch, which is a foundation, open source, and originally made by the first version of this was made by Canonical that makes Ubuntu. It is no longer made by Ubuntu. It's made by UB So it's still called Ubuntu Touch because that's the original name, but this is not really from Ubuntu now. This is really from UB ports. Okay. Uh, so anyway, um, I really like this, and one of the things that kind of is a killer app for me here is the cloud music. I can actually listen to free music. I don't need Spotify. I don't need anything. There's free music. You can search for any music. So I'm a jazz guy. I said, okay, let me search for Miles Davis. Yeah, found it all. Bill Evans, Chick Corea, this, that. I found them all on here, and I didn't have to pay a dime. And that's pretty cool. And it has a navigation app that's built in Linux. And in a pinch, I actually preload. For some of you who bought this from me, I preload Google Maps, and I preload Gmail. Now it doesn't mean you have to use it. I just want to make sure that it's there for emergency. If you have to, it's there. As long as you don't go into it, there's no tracking. You go into it, they can track. So you have to turn off your location. So I this is not perfect. I'm going to tell you there are bugs with this, and one of the main bugs that I found, I was testing it in the car, and then one of the main bugs was the Bluetooth for phone. They have a bug with the Bluetooth for phone on the Nexus 5. So Bluetooth wasn't working for phone. Now the music was playing. It's not like a full detailed connection, but it was using the car as a speaker, so it's fine. But I had to still control it from here. I could not control it from Bluetooth, but I could play and hit a playlist on the device, and then just leave it, and it will run in the car, and that was fine. So the problem is the phone, Bluetooth phone. So hopefully that'll get fixed soon, but that's one of the bugs that I saw. One of the things that you can do is when you find a bug on a phone, you report it to UB ports so that someone can work on it, since it's an open source community. So Bluetooth can be buggy in Linux depending on hardware. They released another OTA update for Ubuntu Touch. Well, it's automatic here because OTA means on the air. So when they release an update, the phone gets updated immediately. You don't have to do anything. So let me see if there's an update since OTA 11, which is what this has. Okay, so let me see if Don is correct. Let's see if there was an update beyond OTA 11, which this got. No. So yes, the last update to this is OTA 11. Yep. So there's no new update to this. So no new update to this. So this is cool. I was bitching because it wasn't live streaming on my half day off, and then boom, boom. Thank you, Jane. Thank you. Now let me see. Did you use any bad words in there? Show. Okay. Okay. Anyway, some of you actually made a comment because actually, the kind of people that leave comments on YouTube are kind of crazy sometimes, because you see, YouTube may recommend your video to people who are not really interested in your stuff, and sometimes in anger with YouTube they actually put a comment, or they downvote you and put a thumbs down because YouTube recommended you to somebody who wasn't a target market. So anyway, somebody reported to me. Will it work in Australia? There's an You look for the international version of a Nexus 5 Periverse. There's two versions of this. I think there's only one version of a one plus one. There's only one version of this. So somebody checked that it works in New Zealand. I believe the Nexus 5 has two versions, and this one is US. So I've only been buying US, but you can actually, hello Joe, you can actually find international versions. So they're easy to find. You can find international versions in the US. So I personally, obviously, I'm looking only at US versions. Okay. So no, it's not 821. 821 is the 32 gigabyte ones. 820 is the 16 gigabyte one. So that's not correct. That numbering is not correct, Skybear. So this is an 821, and it's running a US SIM card. I'm running T-Mobile on it. Runs fine. Calls are fine. Calls are normal. But the Bluetooth doesn't work well. Okay, I have a Nexus 5 on the way. I'll be loading touch on it soon. We got traditional Turkish bow today. Only 12 key. Okay, so anyway, would you use Face ID on phones? Well, do I have a choice? Yes. So yes, the Face ID is active on an iPhone, which I hate using. I can't actually imagine why Face ID is better than a fingerprint. I can't tell you. This is the kind of reach that you find with some of these, like iOS, Things were running fine with fingerprint. So for style reasons, because they don't want any kind of, buttons or anything. So, well, we don't want anything on here. So for that, we're going to put style over function. And we're going to deprive you of a fingerprint. Instead, use Face ID. And Face ID doesn't like this kind of position. If you're going to use Face ID, you have to do like that. And try doing that lying down. If your head is on a pillow, that doesn't work. Okay? If it's on a desk, it doesn't work. It's, it's like stupid stuff that, just gets on my nerves about Apple doing this and overreaching. And then you look back and say, why did you do that? What was wrong with the fingerprint? The fingerprint was so neat because your hand was already right there, and on the on many of the Samsungs and the Androids, the fingerprint is on the back right there, and that was fine because your hand was naturally there already. So I don't see why they had to change that. To be honest, and then everyone's copying each other and say we're going to go change and do that, and we're going to eliminate. Just talk to you about stupidity here, okay? So Apple said, well, we are going to remove the headphone, and yeah, but we're not going to provide you with a different port. So the same one for power will be your headphone. Okay, so at night, if you want to listen to your music while you're falling asleep and plug your headphone in, you can't do that. And and why did they do this? Style over function. Why do they have a MacBook with only one single zucking USB-C port that you need for power? So therefore, you can't really use anything else. Who designs these things? Okay. So that's, style over function. So this is all style. And today, I did something today. I brought a new smartphone with me as I left the house. And this is what I brought. I did not bring my iPhone. In fact, the SIM card is now transferred to the Nexus 5. I no longer have a SIM card on the iPhone. So the iPhone is going to be left at home, so that I can read Kindle on it, because it's great for reading Kindle and development work. But otherwise, this is going to stay home. I'm not going to be spied on anymore. Yes, get a drink, Jane. I'm not gonna get spied on anymore. I'm gonna leave it. So this is the one that I'm taking with me, and I'm finding limitations of this as well. But with a little bit of setup, I think I can get around that. So anyway, uh, if the only reason for dissing iOS and Android, if my only reason for complaining about iOS and Android is because of the form factor, the style, I mean, that would be nitpicky. That really would be nitpicky. So somebody actually complained on my video and said, uh, I am not interested in Ubuntu Touch, or he just said, I'm not interested in Ubuntu. And hello, Mario. And I that was a weird comment because I don't really care what you like or dislike. I mean, why are you watching the video on Ubuntu and then leave a comment? Uh, and leave a comment. Why did you watch the video? So obviously YouTube kind of forced my video on this guy, and he had to click on it because he couldn't resist the title, and then he had to leave a negative comment because he disliked the fact that Google, uh, referred to waiting on yours. Yes. So Mario got one of these, and I shipped a few of these already uh, today. So they're hard to get. So I'm basically this is running Lineage OS, not uh, this is running Lineage OS. Somebody wants this, and then I only have one left now. So I'm down to one, and then I have to wait on the next batch. They're hard to find. So, but I did order four more. It may take 10 days to get it. Uh, uh, is OpenVPN to install on a bunch? No, I don't even try to install on phones anymore. I just use these. It's really crazy to be installing, all the VPNs on phones. It's too much trouble. So I just been relying on these. Okay. So anyway, uh, if the issue is just form style, I could live with that. And if we are enjoying our phones, then you know we wouldn't really be worried about it. But the danger of these phones are so embedded in the architecture of the phone itself that just people just actually don't realize this. And I don't know if I told you exactly what went on. Would you actually be convinced? Because people just saying, well, I like the phone and I can't give it up. I don't care what that they spy on me and so on. If that's the attitude, then I'm done. I mean, there's nothing else I can say. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit. Uh, I'm just going to tell you just a little bit about about the wait on the run. Doesn't matter. Enlighten up because just turn off location. There's no trackers on Linux, so you actually have to bother when you're not home. There are no trackers on it, so you don't need to. If you actually understand the differences, then you'll realize what I'm talking about. So let me just tell you what happens when you have your phone, and let's look at Android for the moment here, because people were defending Android the most. So this is an Android. Now, this is not running Android now. It's running Lineage OS. Okay, but let's assume for the moment this is running Android. Now, what do you have on an Android? So you have your operating system, Android. Android supposedly is open source. The open source Android is called AOSP, Android Open Source. So so you're saying, oh, it's open source, therefore it's got to be safe. This is the premise. If it's open source, it has to be safe because everyone can modify it. But the thing is that Android itself does not accept modifications on the Android, the main Android by itself, uh, because they put their own layer on top. So there's parts of Android that are, are really part of the main architecture of the way Android works that we're kind of locked in. One of them is the way apps work. So let's say that you're using a desktop computer. Here I'm running a Linux desktop right here, broadcasting OBS for the stream here. I can write any kind of program on this. So on a Linux machine, I can write it in Python, C, C++, PHP, JavaScript, on and on and on. Okay, so all of these options are available to me, and I can write it any way I want. And if I need to use system resources, I rely on the Linux operating system to provide me the system resources. But that's not the way it works on Android. So one of the things that Android does is they wanted to have more control. So each app actually runs in kind of a jail. So each app runs in a jail. Okay, and some people were mad at me because I said Android doesn't have a file system, and because their definition of a file system is not the same as mine. Not gonna get into that, but for people who think I'm such a dummy that I would have said that, I said that intentionally because it frustrates me. So that's one of the things that you have when you're an Android app. You work in a jail, and you are also jailed in the file system that they jail you in. For those of you who know Linux, a similar concept in Linux is called chroot. When you do a chroot, you're locked in to a folder or directory, and that's the only thing you have visibility on, and everything else is not visible to you. And you're basically running in a container. That's number one. That's what the Android does to the app, which so you really can't get out of this jail. So let's say there's two apps running. Let's say you're running Periscope and you're running a YouTube app. The YouTube app can't look in the Periscope folder, and the Periscope app cannot look in the YouTube folder because you're on separate jail. So you can't cross the jail. This is why I said it has no fucking file system, because there's no way to cross over. They don't let you see any of that. It's really invisible to you. You don't even make a choice where you get installed. That's decided upon by Android. Now here's the worst part. Not only do they put you in jail, but they say you can't run any kind of programming language here. You cannot run C, C++, Python. You're not going to be allowed to execute any of that kind of code. You have to write your code using our compiler and using our, programming language, which is going to be in Java. And not just that it's in Java, but it's a version of Java that specifically gets implemented using the commands given, it's called API, by Google. So you actually cannot build an app outside of the Google framework. So Google says, well, you're going to write to the display in this way, and this is the command you're going to use. You don't really have a choice, and that's the way that limits you. Okay. Now, the problem is, since this jail, not only combined with the jail of where you are on the app, it's also combined with that compiler that says you're going to compile your program in a certain way, and without your knowledge, we're going to add all these extra libraries, and meaning extra code, into your code. So if your code is this big, we're going to put a layer of another set of code like this, and the rest of this code here is the rest of our Android library that we're going to put into the code. And you don't need to know what goes on in there, but that's partly spyware to check on your app, to see what your app is doing, to see how the user is using the app, to see how many times they logged in, what time of day they logged in, how long they used it, what screens they used, what functions they used, and all that. That's being recorded. That's called telemetry. Okay, that telemetry is being reported to Google, and some of you saying that's not true. You're a zucking liar. It's like, suck you. Okay, as an Android developer, you can actually go into your publisher's developer account on the Play Store and go look at things like how many times your app crashed, how many people install it, did not install it, and usage. How many people used your app, how often they used it, and so on. All that's recorded with the telemetry that they're using, which just demonstrates to you that there's stuff, I don't care how small the program is, it even has nothing to do with that. That added telemetry is built into every Android app. And by the way, it's the same with iOS. Okay? So somebody will say to me, well, I don't really need to use Android. I can use Lineage OS. So they say, well, this is Lineage OS, so therefore it's safe because it doesn't have the Google Play Store. It doesn't matter, because the only way that the Android will run an app is through one way, and it has to be through a special format, PK, which is the way that they compress it, and then the virtual machine. Okay, and the compiler has to format into a specific format, which used to be DAVLEC, and now it's called DEX. So all code is translated into this DEX thing. So it doesn't matter what you write, you have to write it for Android, and you have to write it in such a way that it is DEX. Or if you're using an older version of Android, DAVLEC. Okay, now you say, what the heck does that mean? I don't know what that means. It doesn't matter what it means. The point is, that's not what you wrote. It's converted to this because they add all these libraries on there so that now everything now is packaged to work the way Android wants. It runs inside this jail, which is actually a container, or for some of you that has more familiarity with this, it's basically